I've been seeing you on YouTube for quite a while, and doing your stuff on your end, all the amazing educational stuff. Um, there was one particular video that that I actually recommend to my students that you made, is the almost like 5 or 6 parts music for dancers part. And I'm a musician, and before even dancing, and I was always had that question in my head: what information is pertinent to give to a dancer, or like a recreational dancer, not to get into
Right.
the weeds and talk about rhythm and stuff like that. And I'm not not at all a master in Latin music, but I really enjoyed the way you do it. It must have been extremely time consuming, and it's very laid out, to the point where I make also material like that, to the point where it was so good that I didn't want to do one. I was like, this is top of the heap, top of the food chain. Was really well made, and was very progressive, and very thoughtful. And the way you explained things, it was perfect for a beginner and intermediate dancer, or somebody that has problems with rhythm. So I do recommend that series. And I don't know how much time it took you to do that. Maybe you can speak on the process.
Sure. I first of all, like, thanks for having me. I've seen you on YouTube for a long time as well, so it's cool to actually connect here and chat. So thanks for that. I think you're talking about the Finding the Beat series, and that was actually the series that I did to get started on YouTube, because before that, it's just posting kind of demos of our lessons. So I wanted to put my face out there and talk more, and like you said, give some education and talk about the things that a lot of teachers aren't talking about in their classes, and they're just hoping that people understand how to find the beat. But I think it's like the biggest challenge for beginners, like you
It
said.
is.
So it was the first set of videos I did, and luckily for me, like, I have a pretty logical way of thinking. So I just kind of sat down and I said, like, okay, I know nothing about salsa music. How do I explain to someone how to get there? And so I'd kind of gone through this process because I used to be a b-boy, like a break dancer.
That's
So I'd
awesome.
gone through this process with simple music, like pop music, hip hop music, rock music, like that has a very simple beat. The instruments are simple. There's no crazy syncopated rhythms. So I basically just said, like, how would I do this if there's simple music? And so that's what step one and step two were. Step one was just like, hey, let's understand, like, what is tempo, what are beats, what is phrasing, just basic musical vocabulary with easy music. And then how do we move our bodies to just simple music, snapping our fingers, clapping our hands, stepping side to side. And then okay, now that you can move to simple music, let's learn the more complicated music, salsa, what's different about it. And then that was step three, just talking about the music, and using the same concepts as the first part. And then move on, like, how do we move to that music now that we're starting to understand it? So just like a really step-by-step process.
Do you think that the reason we don't go there, because I feel a bit of pressure when I start talking about music, I feel that after the fifth minute, like, some people want to do moves, they're here to dance.
Yes.
So I'm trying to kind of do it, but like here and there, mostly in starting an intermediate level. And I also had always a problem to understand when somebody does not have the beat or understanding of the beat. Like, I remember one of my teachers said, "Can you tap the foot? It's like a heartbeat. Can you just keep tapping the foot?" And some people have a hard time just keeping steady with their hands. And I'm wondering if that skill or if you probably encountered students like that. But did you ever feel that you could teach somebody to be constant, or it's just like something? It's like a DNA strain missing somewhere. I really don't know. I don't know. What's your experience with that?
I think that's a great question, because the question there is really like, are people born with talent, or can they learn things? And from my experience and from the books I've read, it's 100% anyone can learn anything pretty much at any age. And yeah, certain things might be able to be learned or absorbed earlier, like as a child, but anyone can really learn anything at any point. And that's important to tell people, because there's this myth or this belief that they're like, oh, I didn't learn it when I was a kid. I have two left feet, or I can't find a beat. Like, I can't clap my hands. I'm screwed, and I'm never going to be able to do it. And so I think the first thing is to change that belief, because if someone doesn't believe they can do something, they'll never do it. So you gotta switch that. And so can you teach someone to, stay on beat that they can't stay on beat right now? Absolutely. And I think the reason they can't stay on beat right now is because one, they have no confidence. They think I don't know anything. What is this music? It's foreign to me. So you have to make it familiar to them. So explaining like even just the basic musical vocabulary, like, hey, tempo, is the speed of the music. This is the instrument you're hearing. This is how it's played. And so, especially with salsa music, like people trying to find the one, and a lot of the instruments that people talk about, like, oh, the clave is the key to salsa music. And you're like, sure, the clave is important for musicians and, advanced dancers who are a bit more advanced, but to find the one for a beginner, the clave is probably the most complicated thing that you could probably introduce to them. And I think some more simple, like the piano, because the piano is going to play in kind of that nice 8-beat or 16-beat phrase, that loop. And you can just go to the, salsabeatmachine.org, click on the piano and hear it. And you can tell your student, look, when this phrase repeats, it's marking the one. One. And so that's much easier to clue into. And so as soon as you give people a couple tips on what can they focus on, all of a sudden they're easier to kind of find that beat and then find the one, because the first step is just like, hey, do I know where the beat is? And I'm not just going like this. And then can I identify which one of those beats is the one?
What do you think are the elements? Like I was wondering, because let's say you get a group of students that are beginners, and some of them right off the bat are on beat, and others, even after, let's say, 6 classes or, I don't know, 2 sessions of 20 classes, they're still struggling for that. Do you attribute that to something in their, like, I'm wondering, like, not to go against the fact that everybody can learn something. I'm just thinking, it's just like what makes somebody on beat right off the bat? Is there musical knowledge? Is it just perception of time? What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think it goes back to, the first question you asked, and I didn't address this because you're talking like about in-person classes right now, being a teacher, teaching a group of students. And like you're saying, everyone's at different levels. Some people might have a musical background. Some people might have danced before. There's going to be people in the class that have never listened to music before and never danced before, and they're trying to take this step and get uncomfortable and push their comfort zone and do something new. So everyone's at a different level. So how do you manage that as a teacher? That's very difficult. I have less experience doing that in a salsa context in person with a big group of students. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the online lessons. And so that's why I started the Dance Dojo, is because not everyone's getting what they need in the moment in the salsa class, because there's one teacher and, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 students, who knows, depends how big the room is. And so not everyone can get what they need in that moment. And as a teacher, you might be able to give each person what they need, but to give everyone what they need in the same moment is that challenge of having that physical space and limited time. So the way I solve that problem is creating a tool online so someone can come home after salsa class and be like, I can't find the beat, or I'm struggling with that. And so they can just click play on YouTube and watch the series of videos. So I think there's certain things that can be done well in a class setting and other things that work better in kind of like a supplementary context, like coming home, practicing online, doing it by myself, because a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable when they're being watched, especially when they're doing something new and they're not getting it right away, right? So if you get it right away, you're going to be confident, you're going to be the star of the class, you feel great. If you're not the one that's getting it right away, you're going to feel really self-conscious and be like, oh, this isn't for me, I don't know how to do it. But then if you give them this tool that they can just go home and dig in, because a lot of these people might be introverts as well, then they can up their understanding. And as soon as they start to understand, then their confidence comes up, and then they're going to show up to the class and be like, hey, like, I kind of know how to do this now. And they're going to feel more comfortable. So sometimes class is great. Sometimes being at home alone or just being online is the way to do it. So it's a bit of a mix, and I think both are great.